Welcome to Radiant Health, how to create health from the inside out. I'm your host, Lori Waka, and I hope that you are able to find a nice, comfortable, quiet spot there where you can just listen, take this all in. You never know, today might be the day you hear exactly what you need to hear. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Jason Elkins. Jason is a ladies' love coach, and I'm really excited to have him here to talk to us about relationships. Jason, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Lori. Happy to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. I like to start with asking, what does radiant health mean to you?
So, Lori, radiant health is really, my take on it. It's all about uh, a good balance of kind of mind, body, health, and that type of thing. And where I think, so I specialize in relationships. That's kind of my niche. It's my passion is to create wonderful relationships. And as you know, when your relationship is off kilter, or you're striving for a relationship that's not there yet, or we all know those moments where maybe you have a fight with your spouse on a Sunday evening, and then boy, that just makes Monday morning a lot more difficult, doesn't it? It's hard to focus on what you get to do because you've got all these negative thoughts and internal stuff going through your head. And of course, it also impacts your health. How many times it's almost cliche. It's that, well, I had a breakup, so I'm going to eat a half gallon of ice cream.
It's
That's
true
a pretty
though,
good
we
example.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's important to have your relationship healthy, because we are relationship creatures. As humans, relationships are super important to us. So there was a story that came back, I believe it was after World War II. They had a lot of children in the Russian orphanages, and they had a lot of babies, and they didn't have the resources to provide care for all these babies. And they noticed that many of the babies that didn't have that personal connection, they didn't have a caregiver to sit and hold them and coddle them, were actually dying. So we know that love and connection is critical to our survival as humans. And that's why it's really important to tie this relationship part into really any health regime that we have. Now, does that mean you can't be single and be healthy? Of course, because we also have the opportunity, we have relationships in addition to just romantic relationships. But we tend to, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So I like to focus on how do we create and maintain these relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner, our children, our parents, or even our coworkers. So it all ties together. So that's what radiant health really means to me, and why I believe that relationship portion is so important.
I completely agree with you, and you're so right. It's how, and I just with talking with you the other day, you helped me kind of realize that sort of a decision I was working on, unrelated to relationships. I was kind of having a block due to the way I was showing up in my relationships. And so it really is tied together, just like you were saying a little bit earlier about how we do one thing is how we do another. Is that, I'm not sure if that's the right way, how you said it exactly, but
Yeah, absolutely. How we do one thing is how we do everything. And I believe that.
yeah, I completely agree. And that was quite an aha moment for me. And the story about the babies in the orphanage, I hadn't heard that. But it's so sad. And I believe it though, because we do crave this connection and this community, I believe. And like you said, it doesn't have to be just a romantic relationship. It can be friends, children, parents, any kind of actual relationship you need to work on. And how,
And
oh,
it's
go ahead.
it's interesting with relationships. We all kind of intuitively understand that if we want a career, we will focus on that. We will go out, we will, get an education, we will reach out and network, we will put together a resume, we will be very, very intentional about things like that. We know that if we want to be healthy, we need to actually get up in the morning, go to the gym, work out, eat good food. We can be intentional about that. We kind of intuitively get it. When it comes to relationships, we tend to just kind of play it by ear, wait, see who we're going to meet, or we get up and maybe we get on a dating app and we find somebody to go out on a date with, but we immediately, when we meet them, it's all about them. Who are they? Are they the right person? So we're not being intentional. It's very much a reactive thing. Okay, well, that person's not quite right, so I'm going to kick them to the curb. I'll go find another person. And where we miss it is we're not intentional about our relationships. What is it that we want? What is it that's going to bring value and joy to our lives, and get intentional about that? So, for example, we go to bed at night. It's Sunday evening. You got to get up and go to work on Monday morning. So what do? You set your alarm clock.
Right.
Just setting the alarm clock is intentionality. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to work. You maybe want to go to the gym. So you set yourself a reminder that, okay, at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I'm going to go to the gym. So you set a reminder, you pack your gym bag, you take it to work with you, and you've got that intentionality. But when's the last time, most of us have never really put relationship on the calendar? We put all these work obligations, we put go to the gym, we put, maybe your kid's volleyball game or baseball game, you put those on the calendar. But how many of us get intentional enough just to put on the calendar date night? We just we tend to use ourselves up, all of our resources during the day. We're focused on everything else. And if let's say you're married or in a long-term relationship, you're living with somebody, what do you give to your relationship at the end of the day? It's the leftovers. It's that, maybe 5-10 minutes before you go to bed. Maybe there's 5-10 minutes in the bedroom, hopefully more than that, but we just don't put the intentionality in the relationship. And when we can shift that, because the relationship's probably more important than most of those things,
Right.
In many ways. It ties together, but it's critical. And then we don't understand why our relationships are struggling. We haven't put a priority on them.
Wow, that's so powerful, and it's so subtle, I think, because it's like time goes by, months, years go by, and you start just taking that relationship for granted. And it's there, great, it's there, it's still there. Years later, it's still there. And you kind
and then
of,
it's not.
yeah, and yeah,
And then it's not. And we don't understand why, or we're pissed off at our partner because they did something wrong. And absolutely.
Yeah, and like you said, and I think with children too, it's good to model that for them, that the parents have a separate relationship that they want to nurture, because that kind of shows the children, models love for the children, right? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many women, and I work primarily with women, but I have conversations with men. I'm a guy. I've been around. I've talked to a few guys. There are so many people that are really struggling in their relationships, and when we dig into it, it's kind of what was going on in their background. Because the reality is, we make most of the decisions about, not decisions, but beliefs. We create beliefs about ourselves. We create beliefs about what relationships look like. We create most of the beliefs that we carry through life before we're the age of 8 to 12. Is generally, we've got most of our beliefs are already set into place. So if you're growing up in a household, and I'm not knocking single parents, I get it. I grew up, my mom was a single mom. But we create these beliefs about what the world looks like and what it should look like before we're 12. And then we carry them on into the future. And I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm still carrying around beliefs that were created by an 8-year-old. And an 8-year-old that doesn't have the life experience, an 8-year-old that really didn't know what the heck was going on around them. They create these beliefs, and then 30 years later, 40 years later, we're still carrying them around. So it's important to at least acknowledge that whenever we're looking at relationships. And anyway, it goes back to, I speak with a lot of people that, they're having these problems, these challenges in their relationship. They don't understand why there's the lack of intimacy. They don't understand maybe why their partner isn't affectionate, or why they're not being affectionate. And after a little bit of digging, we've learned that they grew up in a household where, mom and dad never shared a bedroom. They never saw their mother and their father embrace each other or say, I love you. And that to them is normal. So
Yeah.
if they match up with a person that grew up believing that relationships were all about physical intimacy, connection, love, those types of things, you can imagine you've got that rift, because the person that grew up with all that intimacy in their household doesn't understand why their partner is so distant and I don't like the word cold, but that's the word that comes out of their mouth. And then the other person is, I don't know why that my partner's so needy and why they want to touch all the time and hug and hold my hand at the grocery store. And it creates this huge conflict. So when we create healthy relationships, we are creating a healthy model for our children. When they see that love and connection, then when they go out into the world, they can feel safe expressing that love and connection as well. Because what it comes down to is, if you grow up thinking that emotions are a bad thing and shared connection and intimacy is a bad thing, you're going to carry that forward. And it's really a shame, because most of us want it and we're afraid of it at the same time. Typically, the things we want most are the things we're most afraid of. So we can say, I want intimacy, I want that connection, but I'm terrified. I want it so badly that I'm afraid to go after it, because if I don't get it, then I'm going to be crushed. So instead, we just like, well, we secretly crave it. We get annoyed with our partners because they're not providing it for us. But it's really up to us to say, you know what, I want intimacy. So if you want intimacy, you need to be intimate. You know, you need to be vulnerable, because that's really what intimacy is. Intimacy is creating vulnerability so that the other people can see who you really are and have that connection. And those of us that are, watching this understand how valuable it is. I mean, many of the people watching this have those types of relationships that they've been with their partner for 20, 30 years, and it's getting better and better. And the more they open up, the stronger the connection is. That's beautiful. And that's what we all really want. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to set the intention. This is what I want. And then I figure out what's in the way, and then we chip away at those things. I don't know if you've heard this story, but when, I'm not going to tell that story right now, but it's really about just chipping away. It's what's in the way. Let's get rid of those things. Because people come to me all the time. I've had people come to me and say, I want more physical intimacy in my relationship. Okay, great. So that's a goal. That's important. I get it. And then they turn around and say, well, my partner only wants to is only nice to me when they want to get intimate. Okay. And you've already told me that you want more intimacy. So then when your partner attempts to create intimacy, you get frustrated and annoyed because, well, he only wants to be intimate with me or he only is being nice to me because he wants intimacy. But okay, but you want intimacy too, right? Well, yeah. Then quit rejecting him. And it goes both ways. It's not a him or her thing. But if you want intimacy and your partner is bringing you intimacy, why are you rejecting him?
That's a good point. So, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I want more intimacy with my husband, but he's only nice to me when he wants intimacy. Okay, well, let's look at that. Let's create the intimacy, because if you're rejecting him every time he moves towards you, do you think that might create a situation where he's got a little bit of insecurity and fears, and that might make him a little bit less likely to give you, those other things that you need? So just opening up to each other, understanding what each person wants, and then receiving it. There's a line, it's in the Bible, and I hope I don't misquote it completely, but it's do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
Okay.
Seems reasonable, right?
Absolutely.
Well,
Seems sense. Reasonable.
However, that's great if your partner also wants what you want. Yeah. But as a guy, maybe a guy wants to sit around and watch football all day and tell nasty jokes and drink beer. Well, okay, but maybe your partner doesn't want that. So you get to figure out what's important to your partner, not what's important to you. Don't love your partner the way you want to be loved. Love your partner the way they want to be loved. So that's just the thing right there, is figure out what is it that makes them tick. What is it that makes them feel loved? Provide that for them, and then have an open dialogue with them about what makes you feel loved. Because, so this goes into the love language conversation, which I'm sure many of listeners are at least familiar with the concept of love languages. But if your love language is, let's say, gifts, and let's say my partner, her love language is gifts. And then for her birthday, I don't even buy her a card. And instead I take her out to a nice dinner. I spend a bunch of money on a nice dinner because my love language is time. So I'm sharing time with her. Yep. And maybe she just wants necklace or a pair of earrings, and that's not necessarily a materialistic thing. I know a lot of people think, well, that's very materialistic, but it doesn't. It's the earrings don't represent money. They represent that you cared enough about them to do that. So it's really important to understand
Wow.
Because otherwise you're going to have a fight in the parking lot of the restaurant,
Yep.
because she's going to be upset because you didn't even get the card. And you're thinking, well, I'm spending all this money on this nice dinner. I took her to the nicest place in town.
Yeah.
And you guys both do it, you're doing something nice to take her to dinner, but if that's not what makes her feel loved,
Yep.
it just creates tension in this conflict. So
I totally understand that. So it's really about seeking to understand the other side. Like you said, what does that person need from you to feel loved?
right.
And it's
And we're responsible we as an individual, I'm responsible for making sure that my partner understands that. Because, so back to the previous example, if my partner, her love language is gifts, and I take her to dinner and she just gets upset with me and grouchy and moody, and we go home and she goes and locks herself in the bedroom because she's upset because I didn't get her a gift.
right.
Well, that doesn't do any good. And she comes to me and explains, look, let's have this conversation. Both of you sit down and do the love language assessment. It's free. You can find it online. Do that and have a conversation around that. And it just makes life so much easier. But if you just sit back and just get upset with your partner because they're not reading your mind,
Yeah.
then that just creates the downward spiral, ends in, hopefully not, but ends in divorce, frustration, and kids that grow up thinking, man, my parents are crazy and I never want to be in a relationship.
Yeah. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of us do that when we don't receive what we need or what we expect. We, instead of opening up and saying, listen, this is what I was, hoping to get from you, and maybe even this is why, and I'm a little disappointed that I didn't. Instead of doing that and just being open and communicative, um, we just kind of put up that wall and get resentful and bitter, and or maybe
Right.
I'm just talking about me. I don't know.
No, it's not just you. Or we go to our girlfriends or our buddies and say, I don't know why, he keeps doing this. He didn't even get me flowers for Valentine's Day or whatever. And what do your friends say? Oh man, she's a whore. She's this way, she's that way.
Yeah.
Boy, you need to tell them what you want. So you come home and say, I want flowers. Okay, yeah, you get to tell them what you want, but if you do it that way, or if you do it like, you didn't even get me flowers, it just creates an automatic defensiveness. And you're not going to make any progress. When the other side feels attacked, it's normal for us to put up the wall. We're not even going to hear what you're saying. So even in the assessment, the love language assessment, when you go on there and do that, the way the questions are phrased is, I feel most loved when. So that's right there. That's a great way to have a conversation with somebody. Hey, Bill, I really appreciate you taking me to dinner. That was very thoughtful. I know that you really like to spend time with me. That makes my heart feel warm. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I think you and I may be a little bit different, because I know, I just want to share with you that I feel most loved when I receive, when you bring me something. You're on a work trip and you bring me something back. I feel most loved when you touch me. Maybe their love language is touch. I feel most loved when you tell me that I'm smart, or that I'm capable, or that I'm a great mom or a great father or whatever, and just express it in that way, because then it's about what you need, but in a way that's not attacking. I feel most loved when you say nice things to me. And then when your partner does it, acknowledge it. It's people,
Oh,
this is basic like economics 101. People respond to incentives. So you need to incentivize them, not bribe. This is not a game of trading.
right.
But when somebody gives you what you need, they fulfill your love language, they make you feel loved, let them know. Make it clear. If your love language is touch, and your partner walks by and pats you on the butt while you're in the kitchen, whatever, acknowledge it. Don't just ignore it. If you like it, then look at them and say, oh, thank you, sweetheart. And they will generally keep doing it, because it's an incentive. They
Yeah.
feel good. And especially men, we really want our partners to be happy. And not that women don't, but men feel like a man when their partner's happy, because
Yeah.
that's their role. Genetically, that's just kind of what they are, is they want their partner to feel happy. They want their partner to feel safe. And when they start to feel like no matter what I do, my partner's not going to be happy. No matter what I do, she's going to be complaining or criticizing or griping. That's when they pull away because they feel like, oh, I'm not a man. I'm not a good man. I don't fit into my role. So I'm not even going to try anymore. So it's important to make sure that um, that your partner feels like you're happy. I mean, I'm not saying be fake about it, but if
Right.
you are happy, tell him you're happy.
Show it. Yeah.
Maybe,
Tell. Yeah.
so many of us like, well, I'm going to wait until he does 10 things in a row that are right before I tell him because I'm not sure because, he didn't do enough. So I'm going to wait until he's done enough. And then I'm going to tell him that he's doing a good job.
That,
Or, well, but
well, that's,
eventually he's going to give up.
yeah. I mean, I could definitely, and you just, I hope you don't mind me interrupting, sorry. But you just made me think of something like, I'm going to wait till he does 10 things before I give him some acknowledgement. Does that kind of come back to like love? Love, real authentic love should be unconditional. So it shouldn't need to be 10 things, before we can acknowledge that. Is that something that, or is that's really hard for us to give unconditional love? Is
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. My take on it is not not everybody deserves our love. Not every, so it's a tough one
yeah,
because I wouldn't want anybody to walk away with the message that no matter how I'm being treated, I should just keep pouring love in. If your partner
okay.
is,
I
we
see
all
what you,
know there are certain things that you should not put up with,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
However, you can still actually love somebody even when you're not with them, even when you choose to release them. You can recognize that, okay, this person has some stuff they need to work on, whether it's addiction, anger, aggression, whatever those things are. They may create a situation where it's not healthy for you because first and foremost, you get to love yourself.
Right.
And if you're letting somebody in your world treat you that way, you're not loving yourself. If you wouldn't recommend this person to your daughter, then why are you with them? That one comes up a lot.
Okay. That's a
If
yeah, good way to
so,
look
that's a
at
good
it.
question. Yeah, you're like, okay, this person in my life, but I love him. I know he is not gentle. I know he's sitting on the couch drinking every night, but I love him. And I've been trained to unconditionally love somebody. I've been trained to you stick with it no matter what happens. So you can fall into that trap. But if you ask yourself, would I recommend him? Would I want my daughter marrying this man? Then something's got to, if the answer is no, something's got to change. And you cannot change the other person. You can change yourself.
Mhm.
Hopefully, when you change yourself, not hopefully, I trust that when you change yourself, oftentimes the people in your life around you will change as well. But there's a point where unconditional love may be, hey, buddy, you're going out on a limb here, but hey, buddy, this isn't working. We need to make different arrangements. You need to move out. You can still love that person. You love them in the first place. You can still love them, but doesn't mean that you get to accept their behaviors. You can love them as a person, lovingly release them. And I'm not here to anybody to break up with anybody. That's or to throw your spouse out. But that's where I come with unconditional love. I can still love somebody. I love I love my ex-wife. I love her to death. We are not the right, it's not the right time for us to be together. But I love her. So I still have unconditional love for her. So you get to look at that. Unconditional love doesn't mean put up with all their BS.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, no, I completely hear you. And in fact, when I was saying that, I wasn't even thinking about how many relationships might have a partner that's not healthy for you. And I see how that would be a completely different situation. So, yeah, I kind of took us on a different side tangent. Sorry about that. Um,
No, it's a great question. And maybe I was answering a slightly different question than what you were asking.
well, no, but you bring up a good point. I was just thinking, like in a relationship where the two partners are healthy for each other, but just over the years, bitterness or resentment has evolved. And um, if we could look at it like where we don't need to wait for that person to do 10 things for us, like, and so I think maybe unconditional love was maybe the wrong term, but just
No, it makes it's, I think it's a great term. And the other one that I really like that people oftentimes don't realize they're doing is just the withholding of love. We do this a lot, you
Okay.
know, and that's where it is. It's like, I'm going to wait until he does X, Y, or Z before I open up to him or
Okay.
her. It's not
Withholding. Yes.
withholding, it's withholding love.
Okay.
And when you've got love in your heart for somebody, the healthy thing to do is to share it with them. You know, if you find yourself looking over at your partner on the couch, in the car, wherever, if you find yourself looking over at your partner and think, wow, she's beautiful, but I'm not going to say it. Come on, why don't you just say it? You know, if we did that with each other, because if we look over at our wife and we might think, oh, you got to quit eating ice cream. We'll say that sometimes. I wouldn't say that. I'm smart enough not to say that,
But you're
but you know
right.
what I mean? It's like we'll look over at our partner and say, "Oh, you know, what's wrong with your hair? What's wrong with why are you look angry? Why are you, you know, we
Mhm.
tend to speak very freely about things that are not so flattering. But how often do we look at our partner, especially if we've been married for years? You know, look over at the in the car. The next time you're driving down the car with your partner, look over at them if you're in the passenger seat. Look over at them, put your hand on the back of their head and say, "Wow, you are beautiful," or "You are handsome," or "I'm so lucky." If you're thinking it, say it. If we both start doing that, it totally changes the dynamics of the relationship.
Wow. Yeah, I totally see how that could. Like the other day, I was watching my husband and son on the baseball field, and I was thinking in my head about my husband. What a wonderful father. You know, he really commits to being a part of our children's lives. But I never told him that.
I know I was going to call you out. It's like, okay, did you tell him that?
No, I did not.
So Lori, my every conversation I have, there's always some sort of I like to get to work with the person I'm speaking with for commitment. So okay, so what are you going to commit to doing differently? So my challenge to you
Okay.
is after this interview, next time you see your husband, share that with him. Just say, you know, I saw this the other day and I thought it and it slipped my mind. Whatever the conversation is, your conversation, but share that with him, and then take a moment to acknowledge and to notice his response. And even if he plays it off, he heard it. Because
Okay.
telling a man that he's a good father, that's powerful. And how often do we do that? Probably not that often. Of course, it's the other way around, because I know we have men listening to this as well. The next time, you know, when if something's happened recently and it slipped past you, or next time you see something, tell your partner. Just keep doing it. And even if you don't get it back, you just keep doing it. That is words of affirmation. So there may be other things that you need to focus on as well, but just share how you're feeling. Don't hold love, and love that you hold in is what a waste.
Yeah, you know, and the more you talk about it, the more I realize, like, yeah, withholding love, it almost comes easily. It's easier than almost easier than giving love, it feels like, in a way.
It is, because when we give love, sometimes there's always that fear of, you know, maybe rejection, you know, depending on where you're at in the relationship, especially when it comes to physical touch. Um, you know, it's, well, this, I don't feel it right now. I don't feel the connection. So therefore, I don't want to hug. I don't want to kiss. I don't want to do whatever.
Right.
And love is a verb. It's also a verb, right? So if we love the verb, and this was, I think, Stephen Covey in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People talked about love as a verb. And if we do the verb, then the feeling will come. So
Wow.
waiting for the feeling to come before we do the verb, you know, verb is action. So we get to take action. So love your partner, even when you can't stand them. You know, if assuming you want to stick with them, assuming you want to work on the relationship,
Right.
love your partner, the verb to create the feeling. So
Wow.
the verb first.
Yeah, that's so true and so like powerful if we and then like you were mentioning earlier, and this could be with any kind of relationship. Um, do that verb first. And I just want to mention, I know we're getting low on time, but I just want to mention you were saying have that loving conversation. I actually had one with my daughter recently, and it was about that conversation where I forgot how you put it, but this is how I feel loved, or this is
Yeah,
what I,
how I feel most loved is when, or any variation of that.
okay.
It's just, is that song of how this is how I feel, because they're your feelings. You're responsible for your feelings. So
Yeah.
this is how I feel when.
Yes. So I got very vulnerable with her, and I just shared with her like my true feelings, and we just had this beautiful conversation. We were both crying and hugging, and I
Oh,
think
that's
she
beautiful.
really needed me. She needed to hear that from me, and I think I had kind of put a little bit of a wall up unintentionally, not realizing it, and our relationship was starting to feel a little, I don't want to say we have a good relationship, but there was just, there was something. And so I took responsibility, especially as the adult and as the mom,
Mhm.
that I'm the one that needed to handle this. And so I started the conversation just by being completely vulnerable and authentic. And it was hard. It was hard. And it shouldn't have been hard. She's my daughter, but it was hard, but it was beautiful. And I think she needed it, I needed it. And so anyways, when you were talking earlier about that, I wanted to share that because it was such a meaningful conversation.
That is beautiful. And one of the things I heard you say is, well, I took responsibility because I'm the adult. So what if it's easy to say that with a child? Okay, I want to improve the relationship with the child, and I'm the adult, so I'm going to take responsibility. What if we could look at our partners that way, and say, and this is not treating them like a child. I'm not saying they're a child, but what if we look at our relationships with other adults and just say, you know what? It's not I'm the adult. I'm the one who wants to change. I'm the one that wants to create something, and sitting around waiting for them to do it, that's silly. So I'm going to be responsible for creating this change, be responsible for starting the conversation. So if we can be responsible with adults the way we are with our children, then that can shift things as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's really a good point. I absolutely see that.
Mhm.
And so that kind of brings me to before we end, I want to make sure to give you an opportunity. And this sounds like maybe that was a good actionable step, and that's what I was going to ask you. Is there an actionable step that our viewers can do to help their relationships, improve them, or work on them?
There are so many things. I mean, as a love and relationship coach, I'd say the actionable step is consider, working with somebody. But but what you can do right now is I would probably go back to maybe what we were just talking about, or let's go back to the love languaging. Actionable step, because this could be huge. If you haven't already done it, go to the 5 love languages. You can go online. You can take the assessment, encourage your partner to do the same. If your partner's on board, that would be great. But even if not, even if you don't do the assessment, ask your partner, how do you feel? When do you feel most loved? Is it when I kiss you? Is it when I spend time with you? Is it when I bring you gifts? Is it when I say nice things to you? Is it when I do something for you? Those are the 5 love languages. And listen to them. And you can also watch them. People tend to behave with their top love language. So if my top love language is touch, I'm probably going to come across as kind of touchy. So it's pretty easy. If your partner's real touchy, that's probably their love language. If they're always doing stuff around the house, or they're doing things for you, you're taking down your car, washing your car, putting gas in it, it's probably acts of service. So you can actually figure this stuff out without necessarily doing the assessment,
Okay.
but get dialed in on that and then sit down with them and have a conversation. Say, I noticed that you do these things. Is that how is that how you feel loved? When I do things like that, how do you feel loved? And just when do you feel most loved is the question. And then I feel most loved when is the answer. Have that conversation and then pick out, be intentional about doing 3 things that meet that within maybe the rest of the week. It's like,
Okay.
okay, if it's time spent, go on your calendar, block out some time, say, sweetheart, we're going to spend some time, whether it's sitting on the couch watching Netflix, go on for a walk, whatever. Do 3 things that align perfectly with their love language, regardless of what yours is. It doesn't matter. If you are having a conversation with them and they have an idea what your love language is, hopefully they will reciprocate, but don't wait for them to reciprocate. You do 3 things that align with their love language and just watch, see what happens. I promise you, There may be some resistance because they might think you're crazy, like, oh, you've lost your mind, you've never done this stuff
What is she
before.
doing? Yeah.
But if they will appreciate it, they will see it, and then it just opens up the opportunity for more conversations.
Okay, thank you. That's beautiful. I love that, and I can totally see how, yeah, you're the verb to love. So that's
Yeah, just do it. Do something to show love in the way that they are going to receive it.
yes, that's the real key, isn't it? Um, and I thank you so much. You've been so generous to offer a free gift to our viewers, and I want to give you an opportunity now to go ahead and tell them what you're offering.
Yeah, absolutely. So my purpose really is to support and empower people to create amazing relationships. I'm ladies love coach, so I do work primarily with ladies. I know there's some guys on here watching. A lot of this stuff is the same, whether you're a guy or a lady. I chose to work with women because I've been in relationship with women my entire life, starting with my mom, and I feel a real passion and desire for supporting women and understanding guys, because we do speak different languages, not just love languages. We have other differences as well. However, so any gentlemen that are on here or any of the ladies that are watching this video, I would just like to encourage you to take one step and just set up a free call. I'd love to just get on the phone with you. So I'm offering a free 30-minute call. It's going to be laser focused. This is not a sales presentation. It's not about me convincing you that you should hire me as a coach. I'm not trying, I'm not selling anything. I just want to get you on the phone. We can have a quick conversation about whatever's coming up for you. And we'll give you a couple actionable steps that you can take away at the end of the call. When those steps work and you see the value in them, you want to call me back and we'll set up one-on-one coaching. Great. But I really just want you to be able to do something in your relationship that will cause a shift. And I know sometimes it's just a simple question like, what does a guy mean when he texts me this? Because I work with women that are dating and married. Or it might be, I keep having the same thing with my husband. And we may be able to get to the bottom of it in 10, 15 minutes and give you some actionable steps. So there'll be a link. Lori's going to provide a link for us. You can just reach out to me and set up a call, and I'd love to get on the phone with you, see what's coming up for you, and support you in any way I can.
Oh, thank you very much. And yes, I'll definitely add that link to the email that goes out. And before we go, is there anything else that you want to share or I may have forgotten?
Boy, we've cut. There's so much stuff. We covered a lot of really good stuff in this short period of time. There's a lot more out there. The key is intentionality. Okay, that's what I want really everybody to understand is when you become intentional. When my clients hire me, that's a big step. That's a huge intentional moment. It's for most of them, it's the first time they've actually done something intentional to improve a relationship or create a relationship. And what I see, my coaching's not magic. It's about the fact that they took the intention to invest in themselves, in their relationships. They set the intention to speak with me once a week. They set the intention, and that's where the change comes from. It's not me, because so it's just about being intentional. If you want a better relationship, you want to create a relationship, do something intentional. Don't just sit and wait for it. This whole I'm waiting for something to happen organically. Organic farming is real hard. Organic means hard because they're not using the shortcuts. So if you're thinking I'm waiting for something organic to happen, let's get intentional. Let's actually create something.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. Intention has a lot to do with everything, doesn't it? So
It is everything. Your intentions equal your results. If your intentions are strong enough, you can do anything.
wow, that's a good way to put it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all of this. This is wonderful. And I know I feel the same way. I had so many more things I wanted to talk to you about, but I know that we are out of
We'll
time.
keep talking. And Lori, thank you for sharing your story about your daughter. That's beautiful. Anytime you can create that connection with somebody is absolutely beautiful. And thank you for sharing that.
Ah, you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for being here. And thank you to our viewers for watching and taking time out for yourself today. And I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Bye.